Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you the top 5 books that I read in spring. So the way this video is organized is I'll go through all the books that I ended up reading in March, April, and May, and then at the end, in no particular order, I will talk about the books that were the highlight of this season. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting out with March, I first read The Women by Kristin, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. The Stolen Heir and The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black, which I both gave a 4 out of 5 stars. The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs and The Rise and Reign of the Mammals, which I both gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, which I gave a 2 out of 5 stars. Alrighty, moving on to April, I first read 21 Lessons from the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari, which I gave a 2 out of 5 stars. I then read Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries and Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, I read Funny Story by Emily Henry, which I also gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, moving on to May, I read Divine Rivals and Ruthless, Vows by Rebecca Ross, which I gave a 3 and a 3.5 out of 5 stars. First up, I have Funny Story by Emily Henry. I don't know what it is, but like for the first couple books that I read of Emily Henry's, they were just okay. And then ever since, what was it, Happy Place, I've just really loved her books. And this one I was super excited. I got it from the library and I couldn't put it down. Like I literally probably finished it within like a day and a half, and I loved it. It follows two people who, one of them was engaged to her fiance, and her fiance ends up calling it off in order to be with his childhood best friend. And so the people that were dumped in this relationship decide that they're gonna plan to fake date in order to get back at their boyfriend and girlfriend, and it kind of goes off from there. You can tell like eventually they will, you know, fall in love. But I really like this. It kind of reminded me of The Proposal with the fake dating turn to love trope, and I think that is a trope that I just tend to enjoy. So I really enjoyed this, but there was a lot of humor mixed in. I really felt the kind of, you know, romance throughout the story. Like I found it really believable. I liked the chemistry between the characters, the banter, all those things. So this one was, like I said, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and like I said, if you were kind of iffy, hit or miss with Emily Henry, I think I would try Happy Place and Funny Story. Those things were, those books were my favorite by far. And so like I said, I didn't understand the Emily Henry hype, and I didn't really kind of mesh or gel with her first couple books, but her most recent ones I've been really loving. And yeah, this is like where the romance I thought was really well fleshed out. You got to really see those kind of character dynamics, and I felt like the conflict, there was some predictable aspects in here, but I think that's just with kind of romance books that tend to be kind of a little bit tropey. But nevertheless, I still really enjoyed this book despite kind of those kind of some predictable plot aspects. But like I said, overall really was a lot of fun and the perfect way to kind of kickstart kind of slowly getting into the summer months. Next, I have my long-awaited new release, which was The Women by Kristin. I've been a huge Kristin fan for like a long time. I would say like maybe like 10 years or so. So it's been a very long time since I've been reading her book, and so I was very much eagerly anticipating her newest release. And this one I think was really different. What I really love about Kristin in particular is that she always focuses on female stories, or the female perspective of stories, which is kind of lost to history. So in the case of The Nightingale, it focuses on the women's perspective of women who were left in France and the Nazi occupation, and how their perspective was different and how it's kind of a forgotten story. In this case, we follow women who fought in the Vietnam War and how their perspective. So we follow Frankie, who ends up enlisting as a nurse in Vietnam War. This book not only chronicles her experience with being a nurse and working in an active war zone, but also the post-traumatic stress disorder, and also how women were treated in this instance, where it was a war that people wanted to forget, but they didn't even acknowledge that women were, you know, a part of the war. And this one was really heartbreaking. It was very difficult to follow this character having so many different twists and turns, and in addition to not only the like kind of political aspect of the Vietnam War, but also the kind of emotional recovery and PTSD side of it. There are some things that I just find a little bit predictable with this one, but I still really enjoyed it. Like I said, I really love how Kristin Hanna highlights kind of the forgotten or untold side of history that like forgets women, and so I feel like this one was really kind of like a really powerful and important read. And yeah, like I said, I think this is a book that everyone needs to read. This is one that really took me by surprise, and it is the Emily Wilde series by Heather Fawcett. I just picked this one up because I was listening, you know what, like it seemed like it was something that would be fun and interesting, and I didn't like think I would love it as much as I did. Like I literally started reading the first one, and immediately when I finished it, I had to go get the second one. I'm in love with this, and I cannot wait for the next book to come out next year. So this takes place in the early 1900s, where we follow Emily Wilde, who studies kind of the fae and folk at a university. And so when she's trying to complete her field guide, she goes to kind of remote, kind of cold, country, and while she's there she's not very happy about it, but her co-worker comes along with her, and they kind of butt heads, and it goes from there. I think this is, if you were a fan of Spiderwick, I think you would love this. Like, this is Spiderwick for adults, and I just loved it. I love how the fae have teeth and they're ugly, and it, like I said, if you like the Spiderwick like folk characters, like all of the characters that are kind of explored within the fantastical world of Spiderwick, I think you would like this. They're dangerous, they're scary looking, they have like teeth to them, which I really enjoy. And although this is a romance, I would say in terms of the spice level, from like, ghost pepper to a bell pepper, this is very much like a bell pepper type of romance. Like, I don't think it's very romance heavy. There are romantical aspects in this, but I would say it's more kind of on the tame side, which I really enjoy. Especially, I feel like a lot of like romantasy, I wouldn't classify this as romantasy, but I feel like as of recent, a lot of fantastical books that have some romance into it have been kind of very explicit and steamy, and I think sometimes it's nice to kind of take a step back to not really have that and just focus more, not only the physical connection is important, but also the emotional connection as well. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see what this has in store. There's a lot of like, again, kind of like funny moments in here. I just love the characters, I love the banter, I love the relationship between all of them. So like I said, I was very excited that I enjoyed this so much, and like I said, it kind of brought me back to when I read Spiderwick as a kid, and it also made me want to read, for whatever reason, the Folk of the Air trilogy by Holly Black, because I think the fae in that world, and like she was also a writer of Spiderwick, it kind of reminds me of that. So yeah, like I said, and I think these were perfect to read in the springtime, even though this one kind of takes place in cold winter. This one's kind of springy. So yeah, these, like I said, took me by surprise, and I get the hype. Next, speaking of Holly Black, I have The Prisoner's Throne, which was the final book in the Stolen Heir duology, and this is a spin-off like story from the original Folk of the Air trilogy. But I felt like after reading the Stolen Heir, you didn't necessarily need to read the original trilogy, but because a lot of the characters and the politics from that are kind of the first trilogy, I feel like you do need to read the original trilogy in order to understand this one. But I really love this. I really love this series overall. Like, the Folk of the Air and this one was what I was reading when I was preparing for my dissertation defense last year, and so I feel like the series will always be near and dear to my heart, just because it helped me kind of get through that really stressful period in my life, and it helped me kind of disassociate and kind of give my brain a mental break. But this one kind of takes, I don't want to spoil anything, but this duology in particular follows two side characters that don't necessarily have like a very significant role, but we follow Oak, who is Jude's brother, and then we also follow, I'm totally blanking on her name, but we also oh yes, sorry, Ren. But we follow also Ren, who was a kind of a minor character in this one, and they kind of go on a quest together. And the first book kind of very much ended on a cliffhanger, and then this one I love to see the continuation, and I think there's going to be like a continuation or like another spin-off on this one, focusing on like the undersea, which I think would be really fun. But I really love this. There's something about the characters, this world in particular, that again reminds me of Spiderwick. But I really enjoyed it, and I like how this one, the first book, is told from Ren's perspective, and then this one's told from Oak's perspective, and I liked kind of getting that dual perspective where this one is totally from Oak's perspective, which I think adds to the story. You kind of get a different perspective and viewpoint, and you don't really necessarily know what is going on behind the scenes from this standpoint, which I like. I like kind of being in the dark, not knowing what's going on. So yeah, like I said, this one was just a lot of fun, and it has me excited for whenever the next book comes out in this kind of world. And lastly, this is a audiobook that I listened to, and it was a book that I've had on my shelf for a while, and I'm very, very happy that I got the audiobook for this one, because when I was driving back from Montreal, it was like a 9-hour drive, and if you give me a good audiobook, like I could drive forever basically. And this is the one, because I was like trying to think of what I prefer, nonfiction audiobooks, and I was trying to think in my head like which ones do I need to, you know, read on my shelves, and this was one of them, and it was The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. And I, as a kid, loved dinosaurs. I wanted to be a paleontologist. I knew everything all like that you wanted to know, like that you need to know about dinosaurs. Like I was just completely fascinated, and even now I just find them totally interesting, and just evolution and how events can just spark this, kind of can change basically the course of history forever. And this is by Steve Brusatte, who actually is a paleontologist professor in Edinburgh, and he kind of talks about how dinosaurs eventually evolved to be kind of like the, you know, main kind of predator of the world, and how they evolved to be such a superpower species, and then the eventual like rise of their species, and then the demise of their species as a result of the asteroid. So I thought this was really interesting. Like I was fully engaged for that entire 9.5-hour car ride. Like I was thoroughly entertained, and it was just a lot of fun. Like it really sparked kind of my love that I had as a kid, like my inner kid's like love for like dinosaurs, and just learning about them, and just how we will forever be continuing to learn more about them, and how we can, you know, the science behind a lot of like unearthing things that we find with fossils. Like my mind was blown. My little kind of paleontologist nerd in me had a really great time. And then I also picked up his newest book, which was The Rise and Reign of Mammals, which I really enjoyed as well, but I think this one was my favorite just because, like I said, I'm a little biased towards dinosaurs. But yeah, like I said, if you are looking for a nonfiction and you want something a little bit different, I think this is a great book to pick up. Like I said, if you were a dinosaur kid, or if you're even just interested, I think there's something that you will learn and just will blow your mind with this. So like I said, I had the time of my life on the car ride, even though it was tiring. My brain was thoroughly entertained the entire time. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know some of the highlights of the books that you read this spring and all that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.